You probably know that the Kansas City Chiefs won Super Bowl 58 in 2024, their second in a row. But did you know that the team's home games aren't actually played in Kansas? Their home, Arrowhead Stadium, is actually in Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, in the actual state of Kansas. And speaking of Missouri, did you know that the Show Me State is home to the longest river in the US? Despite the popular misconception that the Mississippi River is the longest, it's actually the Missouri River that claims this flattering title, stretching an impressive 2,341 miles. That's barely 1 mile longer than the Mississippi, but hey, a win is a win. These are just 2 US geography facts that most people get wrong. Think you know your stuff? Brace yourself for another rapid-fire 48 mind-blowing geography facts. Fact number 48. Alaska isn't the least populous state in the US. Alaska might be the least densely populated US state, but the title of the least populous state actually belongs to Wyoming, with about 580,000 residents compared to Alaska's 730,000. Fact number 47. Not all 50 US states observe daylight saving time. You know that pesky time change that messes with your sleep schedule twice a year? Not everyone in the US has to deal with it. While the rest of us are busy springing forward and falling back, folks in Hawaii and Arizona, except for the Navajo Nation, can enjoy a more constant sleep routine year-round. Fact number 46. Washington, D.C. wasn't America's first capital. Now we know what you're thinking. Duh, it was in Philadelphia. Nope, the U.S.'s first capital was actually New York City. It was in this bustling city that the first U.S. president, George Washington, took the oath of office. You knew that one? Okay, we'll see how you do with this next one. Fact number 45. A fragment of Africa lies beneath the US. That's right. You might think you're living in the southeastern US, but you might very well be standing on a piece of Africa, stuck there after millions of years of geological shifts. Fact number 44. You can see Russia from Alaska. Though this fact has been debated extensively, you can actually see Russia from Alaska, thanks to the Cape Prince of Wales, which is only about 50 miles away from mainland Siberia. Fact number 43. There are only 2 Caribbean islands under US sovereignty. There are over 7,000 Caribbean islands, but the US only has sovereignty over 2, Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands. Ready for the next one? Fact number 42, you could fit the world's entire population within the borders of Texas. Yes, Texas is really that massive. And no, we aren't talking about almost 8 billion people living comfortably inside the almost 270,000 square mile land area. We're only saying that they could all technically fit. Fact number 41. Texas isn't the largest US state. Now, this one might outright shock you. The Lone Star State is only the second largest US state. In terms of sheer landmass, Alaska takes the crown, dwarfing Texas by a considerable margin. At around 660,000 square miles, Alaska is more than 2 times larger than Texas. Okay, you probably knew that one. But how about this? Fact number 40. The 4 largest US cities are in Alaska. New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago might be the largest US cities by population, but Sitka, Juneau, Wrangell, and Anchorage are the largest by area, and they're all in Alaska. Fact number 39. The US is home to the shortest river in the world. From the tallest mountain to the shortest river, the tiny Roe River is only about 200 feet long and is located in Montana. It's all about balance. Fact number 38. The US features a mountain higher than Mount Everest. At just over 29,000 feet, Mount Everest is officially the world's highest mountain. But that's just above sea level. If you measure from base to summit, Hawaii's 33,500-foot tall Mauna Kea is higher. Fact number 37. The largest distance between any 2 points in US territory is almost 10,000 miles. Set off on a journey from Point Udall, Guam to Point Udall, St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands, and you'll need to travel around 9,500 miles. That's almost the same as traveling from New York City to Sydney, Australia. Fact number 36. Route 66 isn't the longest US highway. Route 66 might be the most iconic highway in the US, but it isn't the longest. That honor belongs to US Route 20, which spans around 3,365 miles from Boston, Massachusetts to Newport, Oregon. Fact number 35. Alaska is both the westernmost and easternmost US state. Alaska is quite clearly the westernmost state in the US, extending far into the Pacific Ocean. Ocean. But thanks to its Aleutian Islands, which stretch across the 180th meridian, the last frontier also houses the US's most extreme eastern point. Sorry, Maine. Fact number 34. Maine is the closest U.S. state to Africa. Don't feel too sorry about Maine, as the Pine Tree State has a fascinating fact of its own. Quoddy Head is only 3,150 miles away from the El Bedouza commune in Morocco, allowing Maine to hold the distinction of being the closest U.S. state to the African continent. Fact number 33, Maine isn't as far north as most people believe. Compared to the rest of the U.S., Maine is pretty far up north, but a large chunk of Europe, including the UK and parts of Scandinavia, extend farther north than Maine. Fact number 32. All cardinal directions from Stamford, Connecticut lead to New York. Yep, whether you opt to travel north, south, west, or sail east in this fine town in Connecticut, you'll end up in the state of New York. Fact number 31. Florida isn't the southernmost U.S. state. If you've ever traveled to Key West, you might have thought you were at the southernmost point of the U.S. But really, the true southernmost point of the entire U.S. is in Hawaii, only about 1,500 miles from the equator, and it's called Kalai. Fact number 30. Certain parts of Nevada extend further west than Los Angeles. Los Angeles is often considered a quintessential West Coast city. You might be surprised to learn that the city of Reno in Nevada is roughly 86 miles farther west than the city of Angels. Fact number 29, Los Angeles used to have a much longer name. Speaking of the City of Angels, it wasn't always called Los Angeles. It was originally known as, and hang with me here, El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Ángeles de Rio de Posiúncula. That's quite a mouthful. Fact number 28. Hawaii edges closer to Alaska every year. Every year, Hawaii moves northwest towards Alaska at a rate of about 3 inches. Unfortunately, that rate means that none of us will live long enough to see these two meet. But don't worry, the US states that actually do meet are still full of fascinating geographical quirks. Fact number 27. Only one US state is triply landlocked. Not only does Nebraska lack any ocean coastline, but it's also entirely surrounded by other landlocked states. In other words, to reach an ocean, you would have to pass through at least 3 other states, regardless of which direction you take. Fact number 26. Despite being landlocked, Wyoming has islands. Wyoming might be landlocked, but this fact doesn't stop the cowboy state from having at least 30 named islands located in its many lakes. Fact number 25. 2 U.S. states don't share borders with any other U.S. state. Landlocked, double landlocked, triple landlocked? Hawaii and Alaska can't relate. These 2 U.S. states are the only ones that don't share borders with any other state. Fact number 24. Missouri and Tennessee share their borders with the highest number of U.S. states. That's right, Missouri and Tennessee are true border hoppers, each sharing boundaries with a whopping 8 states. Talk about mixing and mingling. Fact number 23. The U.S. borders 3 oceans. Most people know that the US borders the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but did you know that it also touches the Arctic Ocean? Alaska's northern coastline is the one adding a chilly third ocean to the mix. It's about time for us to shift focus to hit you with some fun and unexpected US city facts. Fact number 22. Orlando isn't the capital of Florida. Orlando might have the fame and the theme parks, but it doesn't have the title of Florida's capital city. This honor goes to Tallahassee, which is located in the state's panhandle. Fact number 21. Anchorage is quite a global hub. Despite its remote location, Anchorage is a major hub for international cargo, especially because it sits halfway between major markets like Asia and North America. Fact number 20. 34 US states have a city or a town named Springfield. Some might believe the common factoid saying that every US state has a city or a town called Springfield, while others might think there's only one Springfield, famously known as the home of The Simpsons. Either way, you're in for a surprise. Fact number 19. The smallest incorporated town in the US only has 1 resident. When you hear the phrase a small town, you might think of charming communities with a few hundred residents, but the population of the smallest incorporated town in the US, Monowi, Nebraska, is exactly 1 person. Fact number 18. The US has 2 state capitals that rhyme. Here's a silly geographical fact to shake things up. Boston and Austin are the only 2 US state capitals with rhyming names. Let's keep the fun going. Fact number 17. The state of Colorado isn't shaped like a square. Don't let the maps fool you. Colorado has a much more complex shape, one that has as many as 697 sides. That's a hexaheptaenneaconticaheptagon for you geometry buffs out there. Fact number 16. The US has a large appetite. On average, Americans tend to eat about 100 acres of pizza each day. But there's more, around 20 billion hot dogs and 50 billion hamburgers a year. That's a lot of fast food. Fact number 15. You can walk from Alaska to Russia. Not only can you see Russia from Alaska, but you can also walk to it. This daring 2.4-mile trek could only be possible during the winter months when the Bering Strait freezes over. Ready for another rapid-fire round? This time of unique US state characteristics. Fact number 14. Kentucky boasts more caves than any other location in the world. The largest cave system on Earth is located in the Bluegrass State, and around 430 out of the estimated 600 miles have been explored. Fact number 13. Only 2 US states can grow coffee. Bad news for all the caffeine enthusiasts. Only Hawaii and California can grow the beans for this beloved beverage. So if you're craving a local taste of American-grown coffee, you'll need to head to these sunny locales. Fact number 12. You can drive on the left side of the road in the US. Move over, Britain. The US Virgin Islands have got you covered with left side driving. But most cars in the USVI are imported from the mainland US, meaning their steering wheel is also on the left side. Fact number 11. Alaska has the longest coastline in the US. Alaska is the reigning champion of national coastlines, with around 6,660 miles in total, more than every other US state combined. Fact number 10. Alaska also has the most earthquakes in the US. Thanks to its position on one of the world's fastest-moving underwater tectonic faults, Alaska has an average of 1,000 earthquakes per month. Fact number 9. California rivals Canada in terms of population. California's population is almost as large as that of the entire country of Canada. With over 39.1 million residents, California is a mega-state that only trails a few 100,000 people behind Canada. Let's list a few quick US geography facts in the traditional sense of the word. Fact number 8. The western parts of the US used to have enormous lakes. Over 20,000 years ago, states like Nevada, Utah, and Oregon used to contain massive bodies of water that could rival the Great Lakes. Fact number 7. The 5 Great Lakes are technically only 4. Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are connected, making the total number of the Great Lakes 4 instead of 5. Fact number 6. The distance between the highest and lowest point in the contiguous US is under 100 miles. You can stand at the peak of Mount Whitney in California, the highest point in the contiguous US at almost 14,500 feet, and then travel to Death Valley's Badwater Basin, the lowest point at around 280 feet below sea level, and cover that entire distance in roughly 80 miles. Fact number 5. There's a tiny portion of the Appalachian Range located in France. The Appalachian Range formed before North America broke away from Europe, so French people could call themselves hillbillies if they like. Fact number 4. Mount Whitney isn't the highest mountain in the US. At 14,505 feet, Mount Whitney is the tallest mountain in the contiguous US. But the entire US? That honor belongs to Alaska's Denali, formerly known as Mount McKinley, at just over 20,300 feet. There are only 3 facts left on our list. Let's wrap it up with a bang. Fact number 3. Only 2 US states have never recorded a temperature over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. One is obvious, Alaska. However, the other one might shock you. Since it became a state, Hawaii, the land of volcanoes and tropical breezes, has never seen temperatures climb above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Fact number 2. Dozens of buildings in New York City have their own zip codes. Over 40 skyscrapers in New York City, including the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building, are so large that they can boast their own unique zip code. And finally, fact number 1, the Statue of Liberty isn't in New York. If you live in New York or New Jersey, you've probably had this argument a million times. The Statue of Liberty might be the most iconic symbol of the Big Apple, but it geographically resides in New Jersey's waters. And there you have it. 50 US geography facts that tend to surprise or outright shock most people. How many of them did you already know? And which two were your favorite or surprised you the most? Leave us a comment down below. And make sure to subscribe to our channel for more fun videos and check out the ones we've previously put out. Thanks for watching, and as always, take care out there.